come to a meeting?
Between 20, 25, just depends.
Okay.
So I want to say good afternoon and good morning to everyone, and thank you for being on today for the Project E3 Leadership Academy Community of Practice. We're excited to have you join us. We do usually start our meeting off today or each time with our introductions. And for those of you who don't know, I'm Robin Freeman with the University of Arkansas Currents in Central Arkansas. I would like to say that we have had about 16 inches of snow here in Central Arkansas. So we are excited and amazed, and yeah, we're flabbergasted. We don't know how to act. But it's a beautiful sight here in Central Arkansas. Just hoping the water comes back on really soon. So we're going to start off our Project E3 with our introductions, and we usually go by state. Seeing that we don't have a lot of people on right now, we'll give them a few minutes to get in, but why don't we just do a round robin, and you can unmute your mics and introduce yourself, tell us who you are and the agency that you're with.
Good morning, my name is Devin Puente. I work for Department of Rehabilitation in California, and my office is in the Central Valley in Fresno, California.
Good morning.
I'm Twyla Hammonds. I'm vocational rehabilitation counselor in the state of Kentucky. We're under snow and ice here.
I feel you, Twyla. We're doing introductions of who wants to go next.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia Herrera, and I'm with the California Department of Rehabilitation.
Cynthia.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Rosalind Davis in Louisiana with Open Health Care Clinic.
Hi, Rosalind.
Hi, Lucinda Ramos, New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions.
Thank you for being on today.
Of course.
Good morning, everyone. Priscilla Varela with the California Department of Rehabilitation.
Good morning. Introductions. If you would like to unmute your mic and please tell us who you are, your agency that you're with, and state. Anyone else? All right, not hearing any other introductions, we'll go ahead and get started with our presentation then. Thank you all for being on today. We're excited to have with us for our presentation our special guest, Kathy Corrado. I think I'm saying that right? Last name? With the Washington Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Youth. And she provides training and consultation with the Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Youth. She is the state with the state outreach team for Washington State, and her area of focus is literacy, including reading, writing, and all content areas. I'm excited to have Kathy with us because she's going to be talking about the challenges that have been brought on during the COVID-19 pandemic, connecting with isolated deaf students, overcoming technology issues, and supporting access to the pre-employment transition service, vocational training and employment, and the event that they had called Deaf Ready, in which they connected their students to over 30 employees in 3 days in September this fall. So that to me is exciting and really speaks to the work that many of you all are doing to reach hard-to-reach populations. And so Kathy, thank you for being with us today. And we're going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. First off, if you have questions, just ask them. It doesn't matter if you interrupt me or not. I'm a teacher of the deaf by trade. I started in elementary. Now I work with a lot of transition For many, many years, we put on an event in Washington State it's called BizTown. It's Junior Achievement. We brought 200, 300 deaf kids from all over the state for 2 days, DVR funded a lot of what we did. And if you're not familiar with Junior Achievement, basically there's 2 parts to it: Finance Park for older kids and BizTown for younger kids. We put them in hotels, we fed them, curriculum was taught, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things we realized when we got together with the high school kids is that they had not a lot of job readiness, not a lot of soft skills, not a lot of even decision making. Often in a deaf family, parents don't sign. What happens in our population, and maybe in yours too, is that deaf kids don't hear the kitchen table conversations about, oh, we can't afford that this week, or we got to save our money for a vacation, or they're totally out of the loop of what happens in the finances in a family, nor do they understand what happens after you graduate high school. One of the events that we did, the event was always Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday night, we started inviting deaf professionals to come to this place outside of Seattle. And basically we put these deaf professionals all over the building, and parents and students went up and met someone from Amazon, someone who was an accountant, someone who was a mechanic, someone who was an ultrasound tech. And these are all deaf people. And what happened is that first there was a lot of tears, I think. Parents could not believe that their child could be a tech person in Amazon, or they could work at Starbucks, or work at Microsoft. It was amazing. Nor did the students really understand that they could do that. And so there was a lot of questions and answers. This last year, we had our same event set up for March. We had all the deaf professionals scheduled. We had buses, hotels, boom. And then, as everybody knows, it was all canceled. So we, and this is a huge socializing thing for deaf kids to meet other deaf kids, for families to meet families. We had a lot of family workshops. We had a lot of family participation. We had DVR counselors from every area in the state, kind of spread out, and we'd have like a half an hour where you go meet your DVR person who was in your location. So all this went out the window as it happened everywhere else. And so what we did is we sat down and we talked about how could we connect students with professionals again, and how to explain to them what jobs are available in Washington State. So we had this program, we called it Deaf Ready, and it took about 6 months to set up. And I sat down with a couple of the business people from the DVR office in Washington, and we outlined 6 categories of career clusters, we called them. And we basically went by things like warehouse, manufacturing, technology. We had social services. We had retail, hospitality. And then we started contacting employers in each of these areas. The business professionals from DVR had contacts. Everybody we knew had contacts. We contacted everyone we could on the planet, basically. And we asked them if they would participate in a 3-day event. And we used a program called CVent. CVent is a registration platform, and that seemed to help a lot. But what we did is we decided that on one day we would have an hour and a half in the morning. Let's say it's warehouses, transportation and warehousing, we called it. And then in the afternoon, we'd have another 90 minutes, and maybe that was social services. And then for 3 days, we had these 6 career clusters. During that 90 minutes, we had all the students join. We had Zoom addresses for every meeting. Students could join 1, they could join 6, they could join 2. It didn't matter to us. Prior to the event, we put together a pretty extensive PowerPoint. And the PowerPoint, and I can share that with you, but it basically broke down each career cluster, the name of the company. And for us in deaf education, visuals are very important because deaf students don't overhear things. And so we had a visual, let's say it was Amazon, we had the logo, we had pictures of what Amazon would do, we had a contact name, we had an email, and then we had the agenda, which had all of the Zoom links, and then we had questions, possible questions that a student might ask. So then let's say the first one, which was transportation and warehouse, it was 9 o'clock on whatever September, I can't remember the date. And then we opened it up and the students could join. We had, if it was 6 people from that cluster, they were on the Zoom. We had a facilitator on Zoom. Because everybody's deaf or hard of hearing, we have an interpreter on Zoom. And then the students would join. We went around each person. If it was FedEx, he might talk for a few minutes. Amazon talked for a few minutes. Let's see, Northwest Center, which is a program that helps place people. We even had, which I thought was fabulous, Union Pacific Railroad was there. And every person talked about what they're looking for, what kind of jobs are open right now, qualities and things that they're looking for in an employee. And then we opened it up for questions. And the students could turn their self on, and we had some rules we had to follow, no last names because they were students. They would raise their hand, ask questions, and it went like this for 3 crazy days. And next time I do this, I'm not doing 3 days in a row because it was nuts. And so what the students were able to do was connect with a person who's HR for the construction union. He was there. And he talked about what he's looking for. And, he said, you look around Seattle and we built all of this. And so the kids were like, wow. So we had health services. We had places like Kroger and Safeway and Albertsons, grocery stores. We had Key Bank. We had everybody we could possibly gather up, and gave the students an opportunity for that 90 minutes to first listen to what they had to say and then ask questions. The biggest problem we faced, and we didn't realize this, is that because students are under a certain age, they could, you could register 3 ways. You could register as a classroom, you could register individually, and then we had kind of a third category, which were like people who, adults or DVR counselors or anybody else who wanted to do it, parents. Students under a certain age, because of firewalls, could not often register as themselves. They can't use their school address. So what would happen is a teacher would register herself and then all of her students were underneath her. So because of that, we couldn't get an accurate count. And that was a problem. We didn't know if we had 50 bodies on or 100 bodies on. And so that was a problem. Some students used an iPad. They could then register themselves. That was, give or take, it didn't connect as well as a computer did. And so there was some drops. But all in all, what happened was that students had the ability to look, meet, talk to people, ask questions. In a deaf classroom or in a deaf world, communication is a huge part, and they asked a lot of questions about interpreters and communication, and can they use an app for communication and things like that. So that kind of is in a nutshell what it is, what it was. I can certainly show you the PowerPoint, how it went, but we have a lot of aerospace up here. So we had different companies that will work with students as juniors and seniors and then hire them when they graduate, more to build parts of planes that then eventually get shipped to Boeing. So we tried to look at areas that Seattle is, we had Starbucks people because Starbucks and Amazon, etc. So
We do have one request for the PowerPoints. I think participants would like to see it.
okay. So I can show you the agenda first. This was the agenda. So what happened is these were the times and the dates. So this is how we broke up the 6 categories of career clusters. So that gave you an idea of how, and once a student or a teacher or a parent or an adult registered, then we sent them this agenda with the times and the dates. And then so basically this is the PowerPoint. Like we started, it's called Deaf Ready. It was a 3-day virtual event sponsored by DVR, Gallaudet University, and us. And so we would go into say, okay, this is what transportation and warehousing is. And then we would break it down to, okay, this is the first person, let's say it was Amazon, and then FedEx, Northwest Center, Union Pacific Railroad. Then the next afternoon was trade and manufacturing. So then we wanted to make sure that students who didn't really understand what trade and manufacturing meant, we defined it in the first slide of each thing. And then we talked about different people. We had an electrician, we had the recycling services, we had the laborers unions came and talked. We had an aerospace apprenticeship program. We had Orion, which trains people in aerospace. And then we had a person, a deaf guy, who came and talked about how he designs kitchens. Then we went into what is social services. Then we had different social service agencies that are in Washington that have worked in the past with special education students, not just all deaf, but just special education students. And these people were all on the call during their designated time. So again, we had some more agencies, healthcare, mental health. We wanted to explain, this is a new concept for high school kids, aging and long-term support. That was pretty funny, actually. Then we had retail, hospitality, and service. And this was a business that is owned by a deaf woman. We went into different stores. Then we went into finance and tech. And each person would send at least one rep. Some companies sent 2. And that is how that kind of worked. Does that seem to make sense to people? And then we had a list of sample questions we sent to, so the PowerPoint was to go to the teachers. That was our goal. It was end of September. We wanted the teachers to at least be able to teach this. Did it happen? Some it did and some it didn't. And then we went on to sending it to the kids directly. Their parents were included if they wanted. Sometimes an interpreter for a student would contact us and say, hey, can we come? I even had a 32-year-old woman said, I heard about it. Can I join? I'm like, well, I don't care. It's Zoom, there's no limit. And so basically it was getting all the people signed up, get them at their time slot, get a facilitator for each group, coordinating interpreters, and then getting everybody online. And I have to say the kids asked some wonderful questions. And that is what the goal was, to get them thinking beyond graduating and not having an idea of what they would do for a job.
I have a couple of questions for you. Devin asked about how you got buy-in from employers to work with and hire deaf and hard of hearing individuals and what types of conversations that you had and what approaches have been successful. And then also, can you speak about, in terms of, you mentioned your sponsors, what the costs were involved in putting on an event like this?
The cost for this was almost nothing. The cost was really interpreters for us. We probably paid several $100s for interpreters. We have a contract with CVent, the registration program, that because we've used them before for the BizTown event. So none of the employers charged us. No one charged us for their time. They came entirely for volunteers. One of the reasons we had buy-in is because several of these organizations have come in person to the BizTown event, like the man from Kroger, Fred Myers. He's been on panels we've had tables set up and an employer sits at a table and the students rotate around and they do mock interviews. And so some of these employers have already been involved with deaf students. The buy-in, I think, was that traditionally deaf people, when they get a job, they stay there for a very, very long time. They're really committed to that. Part of it is that it's a they're very focused on what they are doing. If they're working, they can't work and chat because they'd have to stop, put their hands down and do whatever. And so they work very hard. And so the buy-in was us giving them this gigantic population of graduating students who want to work, who will work, because like we have several students now working at Amazon and they can't work and talk, so they work. And so that's how it worked for us. Part of it was word of mouth. We would talk to an employer and they'd be like on the fence, and then we'd say, well, but Safeway's coming. We'd kind of do that kind of thing, but it seemed to work.
He had a follow-up question: if tax write-offs, if that's an incentive to employers, you mentioned that in your conversation and trying to get buy-in, or is that a successful approach?
We didn't talk at all about that. We just basically, the business specialists from DVR who had their contacts, again, it was more, I like, we have a connection at Amazon now, and we're doing a thing, we're doing a workshop next month on how to start building self-determination skills from birth to 3 through elementary school into middle school, because what we're finding is that we're waiting until high school to get these kids to start advocating for themselves. Well, we're way too late in that game. So now we're having a workshop on the 11th and the 18th, and we're going to talk about the graduation rate and the employment rate for deaf and hard of hearing students. Then we're having someone from Amazon come, and it's for teachers and interpreters and paraeducators who seem to, we help too much. We are teaching learn helplessness. And so because of these connections, I've asked her to come and say, okay, when deaf people come to Amazon, what do you see that's really great? And what do you see that's not great? I want these teachers in preschool to understand that we need to start teaching decision-making and independence and all those skills we want. We need to start at we need to start from birth to 3 through preschool, elementary. And so because this woman from Amazon, this is what she does. She attends kind of employment fairs and is involved in what's going on. So it's part of her job. And so she's, again, volunteering her time to come and talk to teachers about what she sees in the real world. And then we have a DVR counselor who's coming and talking about what does she see in her office when these students show up. Are they independent?
This is Devin Puente. I just wanted to thank you for all this information. It's been so beneficial. I work with deaf and hard of hearing individuals. I'm the RCD in my particular office. So just hearing about the success that you have with these programs is really inspiring. And I'm hoping I can pick your brain individually a little bit more later, if that's an opportunity.
Anytime, anytime.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, like I said, it's that building that relationship with these people, and they keep coming back because they get to know these students. And like we took the guy from Amazon at one time, and we stuck him on stage, and we had mock interviews, and we showed how the applying person came in, gave a big hug to the interpreter, and oh no, we don't do that in the real world, boys and girls. And we, so we kind of we role played it, but we wanted the students to see in high school, interpreters are like toast. They just pop up automatically. But when you get to your job, there's no toast. How do you advocate to making sure that you have communication at your job? So anytime.
Do we have other questions? And Kathy, you mentioned a PowerPoint. Did you want to email that to me and I can share it to?
Yeah, I can send this out, the Deaf Ready PowerPoint, which again, we wanted to provide a contact name and a contact email. And then again, ours, for some disabilities, the visual is not always as important. So that's why it's got all these pictures of what is necessary for deaf students to identify. They'll have seen these logos or kind of know what they mean, but not really know what they mean. But I'd be happy to share that with you.
Any other information you can provide in terms of the challenges and of the COVID pandemic and how you face that in reaching your target population?
Well, we're scheduled to have we have our 2-day deaf event coming up in March, and that again will be postponed. So one of the things that we are doing is we put together a grant, and we are now making 15 videos, and they are on basic financial literacy, things from how to do a budget to what's the difference between a need and a want, how to get ready to go to your job, when you move out of your family's house, what does it cost to live in an apartment, transportation, what do utilities mean, food, simple. Do you go to McDonald's every day, or do you buy food at the grocery store? Do you go to Starbucks every day for $4, or do you make coffee at home for 49 cents? And so we have just finished 6 of the 15, and they're on the OER website, which I know you know what that is, Robin. OER is Open Educational Resources. It means anything that we put together is free, and access, you just have to search CDHY or sign language, it'll come up. Everything is done in sign language, but it's voiced in English or Spanish, and it's also captioned in English. There's also a set of 8 videos we made last year with deaf people at their job. So a deaf electrician, a deaf ultrasound lady, a deaf mechanic, and they're short, they're less than 5 minutes, but it shows what do deaf people do at their jobs. They do jobs just like everybody else. So the videos are on a way for us to connect with the students because we can't see them. And it's hard to teach online because you've got to be looking at deaf kids and they have to be looking at you. So the videos have gone out to all the teachers, to parents, to students, so they can at least be learning about this financial literacy portion of. And then the last video we did was independent living skills. We just finished that Monday, and some simple things like time management, hygiene, know the name of the person you're going to meet, just really simple. We asked DVR counselors in the state to give us what they see as the biggest problem. They gave us a list of 7 or 8 topics. We picked 4 for this video. And so I have a person who's explaining, she's actually works for DVR, explaining what you need to do. You know, if you have to go to work the next morning, get your stuff ready, get your badge out, get your lunch ready, do those really simple things that they don't think of doing, and then know how you're getting there. Is it the bus? What bus number? What time do you have to leave? So you arrive on time. And those are open, again, open access to anyone. They can go to the OER website and search them and show them to anyone they want.
So I put in there the oercommons.org website. And so you mentioned that people can search for, I
If you
think,
search under CDHY, which is our agency, or if you put in sign language, financial literacy, there's a million tags, but CDHY will get you right to that. And both sets of videos, like I said, we just finished the first 6, the next 9 are in production now, and they'll be ready soon.
Thank you for that. That website is just a plethora of great resources that are free, curriculums, trainings, lots of resources there that you can use with your target populations. Do we have any other questions or comments? It's really been good information. Looking forward to getting the resources. You mentioned, like you said, you would never do the 3 days again. Can you tell us a little bit more about the intensity of that 3-day experience and how you plan on packaging it going forward?
I think our plan is, I have a committee now that we kind of plan things out, and we've decided that you're basically on really on Zoom for 3 straight days, and between tech problems and interpreting problems and making sure everything was smooth, I felt like I'd lost my mind. So what we want to do is, like, maybe we'll do it Wednesday. We'll do it 3 Wednesdays, or we'll do it 3 Thursdays. We'll spread it out a week between, because now that students are doing everything online, they are zoomed out. I mean, they're just exhausted. And with a deaf kid, they've got to be watching. They just can't listen to what's happening. They have to be visually seeing things. So it's very hard. Their eyes are just toast. And so what we would do next is do something like once a week for 3 weeks, or however we want to do it.
How long was the event each day? Was it 90 minutes?
90 minutes in the morning, 90 minutes in the afternoon. So, so that is how it went. And so by that 3rd day, I mean, we had interpreters and they were exhausted. And then there was, of course, tech problems somewhere here and there. And of course, that's what always happens in life. But it was making sure that kids didn't get dropped and get back in, and dropped and get back in. And it was pretty intense for even the students. It was just so much information for them to take in.
Students can register for any of the sessions, or did they have to pre-pick out what they wanted to attend?
They could do anything they wanted. They could, some were there for 6, some were there for 1. They could come register that morning. Because Zoom has no limits, it didn't matter to me who joined. You know, if we had kids from Oregon come, or Alaska, I didn't care. If they wanted to come. You know, whatever information we can share with them is what the goal was. Just to open up the possibilities to them that you can work in construction, or you can work for the railroad.
Were you able to track any of the students who actually got employment?
No, not yet. We did do something, we wanted some kind of evaluation tool. And so we used this program called Flipgrid, which I don't know a lot about, but Flipgrid is a program that teachers use a lot in teaching, because you can type your response, you can sign your response, you can voice your response. And so what we did is we sent out a Flipgrid to the students. And if they wanted to type it, they could. If they wanted to voice it, they could, or they could sign it and it would record it, and then we could get that information. So I have not since then gone out to check with teachers. I'm kind of on the fence about that since teachers are working like crazy right now, but because that would have been, they had just graduated. And so I'm not sure what happened, but it would be interesting to find out. But at least we got some feedback from some of the students and some of the adults about this was good. Oh, the tech was not so good, or God, that was shocking. I didn't know I could work at CBS Pharmacy. So
What type of response did you get from the businesses, the employers who participated?
I thought it was just a wonderful experience because sign language is unique. They could be involved in something. They could, they're on the screen. The interpreters are right next to them, so they could watch it. They could see the kids pop up and sign. And so it was kind of a crazy thing because we had interpreters who were deaf, interpreters who were hearing, interpreters who voiced for kids who signed. And oh God, it was nuts. But they really enjoyed it a lot. I think they would come back in a minute.
That's good. Any other questions or comments? Anyone? Kathy, this has been great information. Thank you. And when you send those resources, the agenda, PowerPoint, we'll share those with everyone. Looking forward to maybe hearing more about your program and maybe even participating, I guess.
You're more than welcome anytime. If you have any questions, contact me. Thank you for
Tell us your email address. I can put that in the.
It's Kathy dot CORRADO at cdhy.wa.gov.
wa.gov.
Yes.
All right, we put that in there so you can follow up and reach out to Kathy if you want to connect. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Appreciate the invitation. Enjoy.
Great information. We appreciate the resources. And just before we get off today, I do want to mention that we're talking about a Leadership Academy 3.0 and having an event sometime in June, which would be some type of conference or training that we can open it up and invite others to join in. So I would really appreciate it if you're interested in that happening. We're seeing that happening, participating. Would love to get your feedback on potential topics. I know last month I heard from several of you talking about IRTs, integrated resource teams, and additional support for strategic planning and bias inclusion in your agencies, and then technical support. I think primarily is what you mentioned last month about the IRTs and implementation, especially with your workforce partners. But because it says my internet connection is unstable. So here I am, I'm back. I was thinking about the potential of a Leadership Academy 3.0. Again, sometimes never happened before. I went completely out. I'm back. Can y'all hear me okay? Yeah, thank you. So I guess I will close my mouth. Maybe my computer is telling me I'm talking too much, but please email me your thoughts about that if you're interested or would like to open it up and invite others, potential topics for another convening. Okay. Other final thoughts, other requests. Next month, we'll be meeting again on the 18th, March 18th, and we have a presenter who'll be coming in and talking about self-care, mental health and self-care. So we'll be looking forward to that presentation as well. Anything else?
Really quickly, Robin, I think just the information we got from Kathy today was like some of the best information I've gotten. And I'm hoping that maybe can be expanded a little bit more, and maybe even be put in the 3.0, because I know a lot of counselors that specialize in deaf and hard of hearing that feel a little lost right now as far as providing the right accommodations, the right services, and how to reach out to those. Because I'm in an agricultural area, so it's even harder to reach out to those individuals. and provide the services. So I know as much as I'm valuing this, I know a large group of people other than myself would as well.
We could definitely do that if that fits Kathy's schedule. We can maybe work around something in June and go a little bit more in depth about the how-tos of putting something like this together. Kathy, would you be?
Oh, easily. And that is one of the reasons that the videos were being voiced over in Spanish, because Eastern Washington is a huge ag, and Spanish is what's spoken out there. And we wanted to be accessible to those parents. Even though those parents don't sign, they still need to know what's happening to their children. And that was one of the requirements, is that we make it accessible to those parents, because there was no way. I mean, even when we had all these different events in person, we always had a ton of Spanish interpreters just to get the parents to understand what's happening to their student. And they often don't know that. So
Exactly. We run into the issue a lot of the time, like you were saying, Kathy, where they have language deprivation because they're not given that language to begin with. And the parents are Spanish speaking only. And so you have the Spanish speaking only parent with a deaf youth that doesn't really understand any language at that point. And
Right.
so I think this is just great stuff. And I'm sorry I keep talking about it, but it's this type of information is what I've been looking for as far as someone that works in a specialty caseload with specialized services. And I think it's so important.
Well, and I can put in, we put together a movie that explained what the 2-day BizTown event is. And when you watch it, have some Kleenex because you're going to cry. But I'll put that in there when I send the PowerPoint. And if you have a minute to watch that, that explains why all this started from that 2-day event. And I know that California is had set up their own. I think it was down in LA, and there's Wyoming has, Idaho has set up one, and the different state, Utah set up one, and they're trying to replicate this same thing that we do in Washington, and which is really putting all those peers together, because deaf kids only know the same few people that they grew up with, and they're really sick of those kids. So it's just a big social extravaganza. But yeah, I'll put the link to that in there also. And if you want to watch that, it'll tell you, explain it. And then reach out to me and ask me any questions you want. No problem.
Thank you, Devin. I appreciate that feedback, and we will definitely work with Kathy to see if we can go even more in depth on this topic for the 3.0 Leadership Academy. Any other thoughts or questions, comments? Kathy, we really appreciate you, and thank you for providing such fabulous information for our participants today.
Thank you for inviting me. Enjoy. I hope your snow goes away. Ours just melted. So we don't do snow either in Seattle. And so we were 3 days of, so your snow will melt, promise you.
It will. It will. All right.
While you have it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.